I want to ask you, what is your failure story?
My failure story, eh? I mean, there's lots of them. So, in the last, not recently, but a few years ago, the company went through some turmoil, right? And it's very easy to look like, as men, we look externally for problems. Oh, it's not my fault. It's so and so. It's like, this is the reason. But I think that there's a certain amount of weakness in doing that, right? So the company was going through some turmoil in terms of like employees and stuff like that, and relationships had to get ended and things had to move on.
Yep.
And my business partner this year, he's like, it's possible for good people to be managed poorly, right?
Of course.
And if good people are managed poorly, they become bad people. They're not bad people, but they come in the category of bad for the company, right? And while I can't go anywhere, it's my company, right?
Yep.
Like I can't leave it. So guess what? Like you're in the bad category, not me, right? Just to get black and white. So I think that was an example of like failure on my part, right? Despite everything that I was doing, the world does not owe you any like breathing room, right? Especially in business, you're not owed any like peace of mind.
Yep.
You're taking on the onus. You're taking on the responsibility, and if you don't manage it correctly, it's your fault. It doesn't matter how busy you are, blah blah blah, all those things. So I think back to that. I think that's that's a super important lesson for me moving forward. Is that like good people can get managed poorly, and then they become bad people. And managed poorly could be lots of different things, like not enough attention to them, or not enough guidance, or too much like freedom. Like good things can become bad if they're not managed correctly, right? That's a point of failure. Is that's something I'll carry with me for a while. And then my physical health. That's a point of failure. I value being physically healthy. Like luckily I am, for the most part, very healthy. Like, I have no mobility issues. I have nothing like that. But for someone that knows as much about physical fitness as me, that's been involved in that world for so long, that is an area that I want to improve on. That's an area of failure, right? Because I've done ups and downs where I'm like, one of the fittest people you'll meet in your life to like, oh, just average, right? And it's like this yo-yo, right?
Yep.
And it's the ebbs and flows of like things that are priorities you will be good at all the time. And if you don't make something a priority, it becomes a leisurely thing, right? So those are the two things in my life that right now I'm just like, those could be better.
Okay, that makes sense. So on the flip side of that, what do you regard as success?
As success? Being, I was going to be flippant and say hard-headed, but no. Perseverance. That's a success. Like the business is a success, whatever, but like that quality of perseverance and like being able to take on risk and deal with pressure and deal with those things, that's actually what the success is there, right? Because those are, not only do you have to have faith in yourself to grow those skills and put them to the test and develop them, but in your life, those skills will apply to all kinds of things. They'll apply to personal relationships, they'll apply to future business ventures, they'll apply to times of crises, right? So, and there's been times in my life where that's happened, like other people who have directly benefited, they're like, their life has been saved because of those qualities, right? And me being around. So that's a success for me. Like being able to take risk, handle the risk, and, come out on top. So the business is just a side effect of those kind of qualities.
The risk is one of the things that kind of definitely, I would say, every maverick or every entrepreneur need to deal with on a regular basis, and this is why we are kind of in a business in the first place, because of a high tolerance for risk as well, right? It is a drive to some point, don't you agree?
Yeah, risk is, it's addictive, right? If something doesn't have risk, it's like, what's the point of doing it? Like, you can't really have great gain without great risk. That's really end result of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's the same thing about being in your comfort zone. If you're in a comfort zone, you're not risking anything, and it's when you step outside that you're really growing because you're risking something. Either you're risking yourself, or you're risking, like you're risking your self confidence, or you're risking your money, or you're risking your time, like whatever it is, right?
That's right.
So, and then as the stakes get higher, normally if you're good with it, like you start to perform higher and higher, right? And the Army is very good at teaching that, right? And getting you used to risk and performing under demand and stress and stuff. I don't know why we don't force our youth to like serve for 2 years. There's so many great countries in the world that like have mandatory service as a requirement, and like people come out better for it whether they like it or not. And that's here right. Like we don't have that, so people don't grow up with like a respect for their country or what's required to defend it and have a country, right? Yep. So just because there's oceans doesn't mean that we're untouchable, right? So
that is 100%. I totally agree with it. And the year I was supposed to get to Army, Poland decided to kind of cancel the mandatory one, and I know my mother was really against it, and I kind of forged my medical and got the A category, so first to go, basically. And if it was if it was still mandatory, I would be definitely in Army. And kind of from one perspective, I shouldn't be, because of possibility of concussion that could basically take me out straight away. But on the other hand, I really wanted it too, and I feel that it's super important to learning teamwork, discipline, and those skills I needed to learn on my own. And I still struggle with discipline sometimes, right? To either mainly discipline myself, right? Mm-hmm. And just to be consistent, keep on going. And I believe Army could be a really beneficial thing for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I mean, service in general, whether it's the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, all of them, and it's not about doing. I think the biggest misconception, if anyone's listening that's considering it or like it's not about doing what you're told. It has nothing to do with that. It's about working as a team and working with people and making friendships that last a lifetime, right? And seeing the world. You get a taste of the truth of life, which is it's not guaranteed. It's incredibly fragile, and there's consequences to making a bad decision, right? Where in the military, like there are all kinds of scenarios where like if you don't perform correctly, like someone can die, right? And people do die.
Yeah.
And even in training. So there's nothing better to teach you appreciation for your own life than realizing just how like fragile it is. And then when you appreciate things and you recognize their value, you treat them differently. So you will treat your life differently.
Treat it differently, right?